School Counseling, grades 6 through 12. So I'm really happy to be here moderating this event about emotional support for students. And it's nice to see some familiar names here under the attendees. If you were at Senior Parent Night last week, then you probably recognize that I'm here in the Columbia High School auditorium. I wish we were there all in person. But first, I just want to remind everybody to please make sure that you keep your controls on mute. And we do welcome your questions, so please put your questions in the chat box. And a big thank you, first and foremost, to the Parenting Center and SOMSD PTA who are sponsoring this event tonight. We are so happy to have Nancy Kislin, a licensed clinical social worker, certified marriage and family therapist, keynote speaker, and author here with us tonight to discuss emotional supports for our students. She maintains a private child, adolescent, and family psychotherapy practice in Chatham, as she creates and facilitates parent, teen, and children programs in schools, religious institutions, and summer camps. As a speaker, Nancy has always been at the frontier of bringing current issues confronting children and parents to her audiences and is passionate about helping parents and children navigate the complex issues of today's society. She has been featured on The Today Show, CNN, and NPR Radio. So without further ado, I welcome Nancy Kislin. Thank you.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, now you're good. Thank you.
Good evening. It's so nice to be here with all of you in our virtual new world. I wish I could see you, but I am going to use our chat box. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear your questions, and I'm going to ask all kinds of homework and questions for you to think about. So I hope everyone has some paper, a pen, a pencil, because I'm going to ask you to write some things down. So tonight, we're going to talk about your kids, and we're also going to talk about you. So the emotional support for students, what does that mean? Well, let's get started with everything I talk about. All my work is always under the umbrella of building resiliency in teens. How do I help you, the parent, raise resilient children? And now we have to put a bigger umbrella over all of us because we're all living through a most traumatic time, right? COVID, our world's all changed. My heart goes out to so many families, to any and all of you who are suffering, whether it's big losses, little loss, a loss is our own. I know in our own family, early in the COVID epidemic, my older daughter, who actually was helping us get all set up tonight, she was living in New York City and had COVID, and she was very sick. And my whole world just stopped, and I look at the world pre-COVID and now. And when I think of that, I think of how are our children being affected, whether they're the little ones or our teenagers. But before we can talk about the kids, I want to start with you, because our kids mirror in so many ways how we are doing. So if everyone would just get comfortable in your chair, close your eyes, find a nice resting place for your hands, and just feel into your body. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel yourself sitting, and just take a few deep breaths in and hold it and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale out. When I breathe in, I imagine the energy is coming up through the ground, through my feet, up through my body, up through my crown, and into the universe. When I exhale, I bring the breath down and out. And my mantra is, I let go of anything and everything that no longer serves me. I let go of anything and everything that no longer serves me. We know, and there's so much research that supports this, that simple breath work helps to ground us. What do I mean by that? It helps our central nervous system literally calm down. It's an amazing tool we have access to using our breath. I want you to start doing that. I'm sure many of you already do. And it's such an important time that we teach our children. They might say they're not into yoga, they're not into breath work, but you can find different ways to weave this into your child's life. And we'll talk more about that. So now that you take a few more deep breaths, and when you're ready, I want to know, how are you doing? I want to help you create this little space to ask yourself, how are you doing? Are you stressed? Are you anxious? Some of you might have a few tears coming. That's okay. This is your time for us to help you be the best version of you. I'm here to help create a sacred space to empower you to whatever you need. So if anyone wants to share in the chat box, are you feeling overwhelmed, anxious, scared? If anyone's comfortable, that would be great. And then I want you to just acknowledge, whether you write it or not, just acknowledge, wow, this is a lot. I don't know about you, but I carry a lot of stress in my shoulders, particularly this side. Acknowledge it. Okay, this is a stressful time. That is such a powerful message we're giving our bodies, but I also want you to role model that so that you can then teach your children how to do that. And we'll get to that too. So our goal for this tonight is we're going to keep talking about you. We're going to keep talking about how to help you take the best care you can in this crazy time. And we're going to talk about anxiety and stress and fear. And then I'm going to give you 3 things that I challenge you to do in your home. And then, of course, questions and answers. But I want you to feel free during the evening to just write in the chat box. I will make sure to read the questions out loud so that everyone can hear it and know the question. So self-care. You hear it all the time, this phrase, right? Put the oxygen mask on before you can help your family. Never, ever do I believe in our lifetimes has there been a time where it is so important for you to take care of yourself. Okay? So what are some of your self-care rituals? If anyone wants to share, are people exercise? How has your exercise routine changed? Are you a baker? Are you an emotional eater? How do you take care of yourself? And just let yourself think about that. And some of you might be saying, I don't even remember, Nancy, the last time that I took care of myself. That's why I asked the question, because I can't help you take care of yourself till we even acknowledge that you haven't been taking really good care of yourself. What brings you joy? Part of self-care is finding time, even if it's just 5 minutes, I hope it's more than that in a day, that you do something that brings you joy. For me, it might be sitting with a cup of tea on my deck, which you don't know me, but I am like type A, always working. But I've learned really over the years, but especially in this COVID time, that if I just keep working on the clock, it's not good for anybody. So I make time to just sit, stare at the trees in my backyard, the flowers. Sometimes I don't even last more than 4 minutes. But that little separation of time is really, really important for us to refuel and kind of bank some extra energy, because we seem to not know what's being thrown at us these days. Another question I want you to think about is, what type of parent are you? What's your style of parenting? Are you the one who wants to be like the super cool mom or dad? Are you the one who wants to be buddies with your friends? Are you like super authoritarian and it's your way or the highway? My guess is it's probably somewhere in between all those. And when I used to teach at university, I would do a whole class on parenting, and I could go into lots of different parenting styles. What I always found so interesting was that parenting styles often paralleled the different class that I taught on leadership styles. So what kind of leader are you? And I would teach that class of leaders. Often parents don't seem to think about, I don't know what kind of parent I am. I don't know what my style is. I want you to write that down and come back to that, is to really give some time to think about, are you more that parent that just reacts, like, oh, to trauma, to anger, to spilled milk? Now the hard question. How effective is your parenting style? Take a deep breath in, exhale out, be honest with yourself. What are some of the things that you'd like to change, tweak, improve, things you wish you could let go of? Now is a great time to just, there's so much change in the world. This is a great time to clear out habits, styles that aren't working. So, how are you doing? What is your stress level like? Anyone want to share how their stress level, how they're doing? I know last night we did a program similar to this for the parents with younger children, and there was lots of anxiety, I think overwhelmed. So somebody shared that one of the things they do for self-care, beautiful, is gardening. This year was great for gardening because I was not traveling. And that's such, I love, when I use the word grounding, the image I get in my head is that I just have my hands in the dirt, in the plants, and that I am connected to nature. And that is so important. And it's important for children to see us do that, but also to bring them along. So let's just to spend a real quick time talking about anxiety and stress. And I want to define it a little because I think in our society, we use these words so much and so flowing. And sometimes how we use it, we're not always so clear. And then how are our kids hearing it and what is their understanding? Like you say, oh, I have such an anxious kid. I often say when I was growing up, I was the shy child, and I would always hear my mom and dad explain to people, oh, Nancy's the shy child. We don't really use shy anymore, right? We use, oh, she's an anxious child. Well, what's that mean to that child who often overhears that? So anxiety, I'm just going to read this real quick, is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, physical change, I can't see because my little box is over it, increased blood pressure, sweaty, tingling in arms, racing thoughts. Okay? We've all experienced, I'm sure, some form of anxiety. Sometimes we don't even realize that, hey, we're that anxious, and then, oh my gosh, my hands are so sweaty. I didn't even realize. If I was in your auditorium where I wish we were all together, my anxiety level would probably be a little different because here I'm in. And so I might be a little warm because I'm in front of you. All normal responses. People can also have feelings of anxiety, and theirs might be what we call reoccurring intrusive thoughts. So I'm afraid I'm going to fail that math test tomorrow. I'm going to fail that math test. And what if I fail that math test and the teacher gets upset with me, and then my parents need to see my grade, and then I'm never getting into college. And if I don't get into college, I won't get, you know what I'm talking about. That's even a normal, if that comes and then it goes. When anxiety becomes a problem is when the child or the person or the teen feels like they can't control that anxious thought, that they're out of control. And the tricky thing is we're so smart and our minds are so smart that as quick as we come up with a creative way to stop hey, I'm going to go take a run. That'll make me feel better. Oh, well, I might go play with another thought. Oh my goodness, I might have hurt my ankle. Why did I do that, right? What are the skills that you as the parent are helping your child to learn how to manage? Very key word, how to manage those kind of thoughts. So let's go on. Stress, we know, we all have it. It's a normal reaction to everyday pressures. There's the physical symptoms, there's the emotional symptoms. Sometimes there's people who have a hard time falling asleep, but people who wake up no matter what time they go to sleep, they wake up at 3 o'clock, can't fall back to sleep. Sometimes it can cross into moodiness, anger, feelings of depression and hopelessness. Right now, according to American Psychological Association, nearly half of all parents with children under the age of 18 report high levels of stress in their children. Guaranteed that in South Orange, Maplewood, we have many, many children who are feeling uncomfortable levels of stress. What makes me really concerned is how are they managing these really uncomfortable levels of stress? And that's where it gets really tricky. Are they talking on the phone with friends? Are they engaging in risky behaviors? And we're going to get into that more in a little bit. Fear is a powerful, I don't know why my chat box is over my thing. Fear is a powerful and complex emotion. Brene Brown, highly recommend if you have some time to read or listen to her books on tape. She states we're all afraid. We just have to get to the point where we understand that it doesn't mean we can't also be brave, so that we don't let this fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of what's coming in our future, to paralyze us or to paralyze our children. That you are the role model for your children, and that how do you deal so that you can be brave and role model brave. Fear is uncomfortable. We all know that. How do we each express our fear? Are we someone who blows up? And I often use the description of I'm a seltzer bottle that got too shaken up, and we open it and you fuzz all foam all over the place. Can you tell when your children are anxious by their words, by their expressions? What are some of your fears? How do you show them? How do you think you show them to your family? Oh, does it look like we have a question? No, I think I just moved it. So what are some of the symptoms when teens are anxious? So here I'm going to use anxiety, stress, fears all together, bringing them all together. So what are some of the symptoms? There's the risky behavior. Spending too much time watching porn is a real problem. Statistics show us that kids as young as 10 start spending, especially right now in the last 7 months, a lot of time watching, consuming porn. What's the danger of that? Their brains aren't developed enough to even understand what they're seeing, all the violence to it. We can talk more about that too if you're interested in self-harming behaviors, cutting. If you're not familiar with that, that's when children will look for a sharp object, from taking a light bulb and cracking it to using the sharp piece of the glass to cut. They may cut on their arms, stomachs, inner thighs are some of the more popular places. Knives, scissors, paper clips. It's important that you know this, as uncomfortable and as scary as it is, because so many times parents will say to me after they bring me their child and say, I had no idea she was cutting for 6 months. And I look at this child's arm and it's full of these cuts. And she said, I thought it was our cat. Or she said she was allergic to mosquitoes and was scratching it. So how are the kids doing? Is there a change in appetite, eating more, eating less, craving junk food, eating only in their bedrooms, which please, please don't let your kids spend all their time, including meals, in the bedroom. It is so unhealthy. There's nothing good about lying in bed, eating a bag of Cheetos, Netflix, and FaceTiming. And oh yeah, at school too, right? Sleep, difficulty concentrating is a huge one. Right? So many parents I know are so frustrated because their kids aren't paying attention and they're not doing their schoolwork. Well, why are they having such a hard time? First, get them out of bed, right? We're going to talk more about some of the strategies to do it. Irritability, over-emotional. Another one that parents often overlook is money disappearing in the house? Or are there charges on your credit card that are sort of just going to Uber or Venmoing someone? That often is signs, in my experience, that kids might be vaping. They might be vaping nicotine, they might be vaping marijuana. I know in communities like including South Orange, Maplewood, I don't know what the name is or if there is, but it's very common for kids to just text. They know who they can text to get their alcohol, to get their weed delivered right to their front door. How many parents have no idea that, oh yeah, when Five Guys is being delivered, it's also coming with their stash of weed. There are many kids who are older. They're not necessarily drug dealers. They're just also making money by doing this. These are things to pay attention to. Do we have any questions? How are we doing? Everybody okay? So how have we been coping with all this anxiety? So you can go ahead and read Brene Brown's quote. And this leads me to the question of, how did your mom, how did your dad, how did your caregiver manage their anxiety when you were growing up, when you were coming of age? Take some time to think about that. It's a good question to write down. Did you grow up in a house where if you didn't do what your father said, you were going to be punished? Or did you grow up in a house where there sort of was not, the boundaries came and went? If your mom was in a good mood, she let you go hang out till 2 in the morning. If not, you had to be home by 12. Whatever their style was, how did they then handle anxiety? How did they, when something went wrong, family member got sick, financial issues? Now think about yourself. Do you model their behavior at all, or did you go a full 180? How do you handle your stress? Are you super over functioning? Or are you the person that feels like you're getting pulled under and it's just so hard to get out of bed? If you really are having a difficult time and feel like you're in survival mode right now, hear this. There are so many resources out there for you. Feel free, I'll give my info at the end where you can reach out to me. I have lots of resources. I know your school has resources. You do not have to live in such an uncomfortable place. Just want to put that in there. So now I want to shift to your kids, to your tweens, to your teens. And again, I want you to close your eyes and take a few more of those good deep breaths. And with your eyes closed, I want you to visualize that you are looking into your child's eyes. Just sit there and feel yourself, feel your energy, feel your gaze looking into your child's eyes. How are they feeling? How are they doing? How do you feel when you connect with them? What does it feel like in your body when you connect with them? Are you full of angst? Do you feel like your diaphragm, your stomach is getting so tight? Something's telling you, listen to your body, listen to your instincts. Now I want you to think about your children plug into you all the time. just like you in 2 seconds probably were able to plug into your kids. What's it like for your children when they plug into you? What are they getting flooded with? What are they feeling your stress? Are they feeling your anxiety? You guys are all connected. So this is such important work that we're doing tonight. So let's go to what are three things that I can give you tonight that you can try to do that can help lower your anxiety, lower the household's anxiety, help your kids. I'm demanding of you by this presentation, I know I'm asking a lot. I'm asking you to be brave and courageous and vulnerable. But these times demand us to. So it seems so basic, but number one, so I hope you're writing it down. Number one is start with a good routine. This has never been more important. Kids need routine in these life. I don't know if you feel it. I definitely feel it, where I feel like the days and the nights just roll into each other. I can't believe tomorrow's Friday, right? So if we're feeling that, what's it like? Simple, whatever fits into your life. What's the daily routine? Is there a set wake up time? Is there a time to do homework? Where do your kids do homework? Is there time for exercise, chores, screen time limits? Where is the time for the kids to socialize? I'll tell you from all the clients that I work with and from doing so many of these webinars, and sometimes people feed back and forth, they share with me that the kids tell me that if this is my phone, they're on their phone, on their iPad, and on their computer when they're doing classes. So the socialization has sort of just bled into this whole world of homework and school time. So they need our help. They need your help to put some structure on it. And I say this all the time. Children feel safer when they have boundaries. Children feel safer when there's a structure. I'm not saying they're going to like it. I'm not going to say that they're not going to push back on you. That is their job, especially in the tween and high school years. That's their job. That's the time. They want to separate from you. They need to separate. You need them to separate from you. Problem is, we're all locked somewhat in our little world in a way we've never experienced. That doesn't mean you let routine go to the wayside. What's the weekly routine? What are some of the things you're putting into the routine to help raise that resilient child? Is there time for community service? There's still wonderful opportunities for kids to do social justice work, community service work. You know there's an elderly person on your block who's locked in. How can you help them? Be creative. And then don't forget, we need to have fun. This might sound silly, but you think you have a high schooler and that you can't help them with bedtime? I promise you, they need your help. They think they know it all. Their brains tell you they're invincible. They need you to put structure. My girls are older now. I used to turn off, it's right over there. I used to turn off the Wi-Fi for the whole house. You would, at a certain time at night. My girls took lots of APs and there was homework all the time, but certain time, unless there was this huge test or the AP exam, I had a cutoff time. And I didn't always stick to it because life isn't like that. You have to be flexible. But it also let them know that, hey, I better get everything done by 1 o'clock because mom's turning it off and who wants to have a huge fight again, right? Because then you're giving them an end. They have to get their stuff done before that. That fits into the brain of a teenager. Also, it's so hard. I know it's hard, but try so hard to keep them out of their bedroom to do homework if possible. Have computers set up if you have an extra room, an office. If not, make sure that you have this goes for everyone, is charge their phones anywhere but the bedroom during the night. I was doing a parenting program a couple of years ago, and a mom raised her hand and she was very upset. I don't even remember the topic of the program. Yes, I do. It was called Parenting Anonymous. Parenting Anonymous. And she raised her hand, and her concern was that true story, her daughter kept her, I think her daughter was a freshman in high school, and her daughter kept her phone underneath her pillow. And she was getting texts and dings all night long. Well, this particular night, the child came into the mom's room somewhere at 2, 3 in the morning, saying that so-and-so, her girlfriend, threatened to kill herself. What should she do? So now the mom wakes up the dad, and they have this whole big drama because what do? Her friend just threatened to kill herself. So then the mom called the parents to say, your daughter's at risk, and turned into the whole thing. And the parents said, how dare you call? The parents of the child who had sent that text, how dare you call us? And it got messier and messier. You know how that could have been avoided? Simply have your children not keep their devices, especially their phones, in their bedroom. I know everyone tells me they use it as an alarm clock. Not good. Go buy a $9.99. I keep one right here. You sell it in Target if you can see. Nice little clock, $9.99. It works great, alarm clock. So these are some of the things that, the other thing with routines and schedules is have a morning ritual. Some families, evening meals is too hard to fit in. Okay, can you have family breakfast 2 days a week, 3 days a week? You putting it on the schedule, you making it a point that us as a family come together like this is the number one thing that children need. Okay. Even though we're living in this strange world, it's still a really important thing to teach your children time management. And again, we're just going to pull in the conversation from before. How many hours are they spending on screen time over and above schoolwork, classes? How do you have that conversation with your kids? It's a hard one. The number one thing is don't avoid it. Don't avoid it. Ask questions like, do you know how many hours a week you're spending on social media? Do you have it set on your phone? Like I set it up on my own phone because I hate the fact that I waste time on social media. So once I set up my phone where it tells me Nancy spent hours this week, I actually took off my social media off my phone because I was so nauseous by the waste of time that I did. But having those conversations when there isn't a problem, when you're not reactive, when you're not up here. Are there any questions? Do you want to read them or you want me to? I'll read. From how do you distinguish between regular 16-year-old irritability and irritability that may be brought on by the situation? Good question. I'll say it again. How do you distinguish between regular teenage irritability and irritability brought on by the situation? My reaction to that first is get curious. What else is going on in your life, in your child's life? Always get curious. When we stop, we breathe, we're not reactive. Let's assess the situation. What else is going on? And also track. Is this something that just happens around test time? Does this happen when my son is going to go out with his friends on the weekend? We start to track. And you're right to pay attention to the irritability and use it as something to talk about. You know, I noticed that you seem to get really uncomfortable, right, on the days before you have the test. What do you think your kid's gonna do? I like to use I stories. I remember that before my algebra classes, I used to get really, really uncomfortable. It would make me actually angry that I had to waste my time sitting in that class. So what happened when I said I hopefully brought you in, right? I statements, stories, not long ones though. You got like little attention span, something like that. Real quick before we go on, anybody, I'd love to see any hands or know, does anyone know what TikTok is or Omegle? Or what are some of the other places your kids are hanging out these days? Anyone know what Omegle is? Everybody's typing. Well, I'm assuming everyone knows what TikTok is. What I would ask you to do is find out how many hours a day your kids are spending on TikTok, because I'm hearing crazy numbers, like really, really, really high numbers. Omegle, the last time I checked, a couple of weeks ago, Omegle is a version of Tinder. I don't know if anyone knows what Tinder, but Tinder started out as a dating site for adults, and you would sort of go on and just swipe people's pictures and see which ones you like. And then it was sort of known, not that you were looking for a relationship necessarily, that you were more looking for a one-night, my generation, one-night stand or some hookup. Omegle is the virtual version of that. So what does that mean? That people go to Omegle, there's no age requirement, first of all. They go because they're looking for a virtual hookup. And best explained by a story. I had a 19-year-old college student, and she told me a story that when she was in middle school, that she went over her good friend's house, and her friends were all involved on the computer. And they're like, hey, come on in, come sit down. She's like, oh, we're talking to so-and-so. And she sits down in front of this kid's laptop, and the next thing she sees is a middle-aged man. And I'm not going to finish the rest of the story. You use your imagination. She still remembers this, how many years later. She's still freaked out about it. She still cried when she told me the story, because she saw things and heard things, because he was actually like how you're seeing and hearing me, talking to her. She remembers running out of her friend's house and being totally freaked out. Yay for her that she walked away. So unfortunate that that kind of trauma had to happen to her. The next question is, what were those other kids? What were her friends doing on this? You ask any middle school, high school kid around here about Omegle, and you would be surprised to hear. There's all kinds of things out there. Do you check? Do you check with your kids and have and engage in a conversation? Okay, I hope everyone's doing okay, hanging in there. Number 2, consequences. So number 1 was routines, and you're like, lady, how am I going to get my kids to do any of these things? Have a routine, do chores. We need consequences. I used to call this slide like the dirty word. Nobody wants to talk about consequences, but I decided to change it. How do we motivate our kids? How do we get them to respect not only you and the rules of your house, themselves? Because when they do something, when they're actively involved, it's actually self-respect. That needs to be part of your conversation, that you're not just trying to be this bad parent and telling them what to do. So tonight I'm giving you this gift to set consequences and to remember that delayed gratification is a really good thing. Before we go there, sorry, I just want to go back a sec. Consequences. When you write that down, I want you to think about what are some consequences that you could give to your kids? So wait, we're going to take a break. I am having a hard time with my screen here. Can you read some of what the questions? Oh, I think, yes, someone said TikTok. And
There's a comment about how this sounds similar to the nurtured heart approach.
Okay, good. Is that something anyone has tried? Anyone tried that? So it's learning. So here I left off, the last one was, how do we set those consequences? How do the consequences start to become part of the dialogue, the communication in your family? You need to create a family contract. And I just realized that I went to this one, I inject this. So we're going to hold family contract for a second. And on the other side, I want you to think about your child. I want you to think about the environment they're living in your world and in the extended world, the school world, even their virtual world. One of my clients' best friend lives in California. You know, what does that mean? Oh, when I got curious and started to ask, I realized they text all day long, all through school, all through the night. A lot of kids stay on FaceTime and go to sleep with each other. So when she says she has a best friend in California, it doesn't really matter whether that kid lives down the street anymore or that kid's in California. So what are some of the social pressures with that? What does it mean to be on all the time, to not learn how to sort of respect their own container? I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I'm going to cry. Oh, I'm going to go put it out on Instagram. I'm going to go put it on my thread of my 50 best friends. I'm feeling uncomfortable. How do I cope? And then there's the kids we worry about who don't live in that very social world. How are they doing when they see so many other people? So those are just some. So when we come back to family contract, right? We need to have a family meeting. If you were all in front of me and I could see you, I'd ask you to raise your hands. How many of you have family meetings? If you walk away with one thing tonight, I'll urge you to start having family meetings. Pick the time, pick the day. We did it on Sunday nights. It's great for kids to know that it's going to be a set, like Sunday night. It doesn't have to always be at 7 o'clock, of course not, but that there's going to be a family meeting. What's a family meeting? It's a time you come together. Please bring supplies, markers, paper. Even big kids like to doodle and draw. And it's not like, oh my goodness, I'm the boss, you're the kid, you're gonna listen to me. That is not what I'm talking about in terms of family meeting. I want this to be a place where we as a family bond. Our kids, your kids so need you to become part of their lives. Keep the phones, everybody's phones away from this meeting. First meeting, don't try and accomplish everything. Go in, hey, you guys, I think this is going to help all of us. Let's start talking, right? In 1 week, it could be, what are our family values? Where's the place we like to give our charity? Where do we get involved in social justice and causes and issues? All those kinds of things. I'm not saying you don't do it, because I'm sure you all do, but having this structure, having this known place where we're all going to come together to talk about these things is amazing. And what you're also doing is you're building this great container, this space where you can then talk about people's screen time. How much screen time are we using? How's that working for you? We can talk about creating a family contract. What is a contract? For many, many years, I was the camp therapist at an overnight camp. And part of my job was also doing counselor training, some of the best times of my life. And I was obviously much younger then, and I was super funny and creative, and I would come up with all these things to help before the kids came to camp to help the counselors be empowered and creative, etc. So the first thing that counselors do with their bunk, if many of you went to camp, and the kids went to camp, that first evening, counselors would go in with their big paper and their crayons, and they, with their campers, would come up with a camp bunk contract. Hey, we're 15 people. We all have to live together for the next 30 days. How are we going to do it? What are the rules? Are we allowed to curse in the bunk? Are we not? Or whose chores? That's what I'm talking about. If you bring it all together, that your kids have a chance to be part of this. I call it a living document. And that's where you bring up chores. Instead of you always being like, oh my gosh, Nancy, you didn't empty the dishwasher again. Ouch, right? Oh, wait, we all agreed to everyone's chores. We agreed that there's going to be no smoking weed in the house. There's going to be no drinking, whatever. This is the place. This is where you're transparent. This is where you're clear. This is where you let your children know their expectations. I had a young lady this week on the phone, and she said to me that she started hanging out virtually with a guy, and she was so cute, and she was telling me all about it. She's kind of young. And I said, oh, do your parents, are you allowed to date at this age? And she's like, I don't know. We never talked about it. My parents don't care. Great thing to talk about. Maybe. Okay. This is one of my favorite slides because I spend a lot of time with your all kids. And in the last couple of weeks, I've been taking liberty by asking, hey, I'm going to be doing these webinars, and I'm going to be talking to all these parents, and I really would love to ask, what would you like to tell a room full of parents if you could? So here's some of them. Not before you enter the room. Respect my opinions. They may be different than yours. That one is a hard one. And this came up a lot over the last couple of weeks, months. You know, politics. Parents might be here and the kid might be here. How do you respect that your child is really passionate about something and you might not agree with what they are? Excuse me. How do you navigate that conversation? And you still be the parent, and you still convey your values, but how do you respect that they may have a different view than you? Don't expect me to be your best friend. This one, I could do a whole hour program on. This is so important. If you're feeling really stressed about finances, you're worried that you're going to lose your job, how much of that is appropriate for your child? What's your goal in sharing it? Is it because you can't seem to manage your stress? Well, then let us help you find other healthier places to go share it. Because relying and oversharing and poor boundaries is one of the #1 indicators that a teen is going to be struggling. So that is a really important one. Thank me when I do something for you before you tell me it is wrong. This great example, kid empties the dishwasher. You see that dishwasher is empty. You open the cabinet and you see that the glasses are on the wrong shelf. Oh my God, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you did that again. How many times do you know that the orange juice glasses go on the first shelf? Ow, ow. Thank you so much for emptying the dishwasher. Remember, I like to have the orange juice glasses on this first shelf. Okay? This way, I'm not telling you to turn a blind eye to certain things, but it's all in the delivery. It's all in your tone of voice. Right? It's how do you not make your child feel shame. And there's shame and there's guilt. Shame is when we say, you are a bad kid. I don't know what I'm going to do with you. You are such a bad kid. As opposed to, I'm really upset at the choices you made. I'm really upset that you got so drunk the other night. I think that was really bad choices. That's in the guilt column. Because when you go to shame, shame strips away a child's inability to have a strong sense of self, to feel confident, to not hear all that, I'm no good, I'm always going to be the bad kid. And a lot of that shame is not only in the words that you use as a parent, but it's also what you're role modeling. Do you say, I was just making, this really did happen, I was making squash soup, I'm one of the worst cooks around, and I did something and there was squash all over my newly clean kitchen. Do I say, I can't believe how stupid I am, nothing I do, I'm such a stupid person? Or do I take another road and be like, I can't believe, I'm just gonna clean this up, I wasn't paying enough attention, something, anything but going into the fact that I'm a stupid person, because that is the shame. And there's wonderful research out there, if you're interested, that shows when you look at children who are raised primarily by shame versus children who are raised by guilt, it's the children who are raised by shame that are more likely to engage in risky behavior, self-harming behavior, really have some more significant struggles. So just want to slip that in there. I may look like a big kid, but don't forget that I still want to have fun. Acknowledge me, see me, hear me. Don't judge me. So, are we doing okay on time? Everyone okay? Any questions out there? Jump in if you do. Somebody posted something. I can't see it though. So number 3, we're almost finished. Number 3 is such a silly one, but I love it, is don't forget in all this crazy times to show your children you love them. But I want you to just really hear that. How do you show your family you love them? Breathe, take a few deep breaths, take a sip of water. We all, even your angry, moody teen, still needs to know not only that they're loved, but that they're lovable. It's really, really important. What is your family's way of demonstrating? In our house, it was very touchy-feely, very huggy. Everyone who came to my house, my mom and dad never met you, you still got a hug. Married my husband, they don't hug, right? One's not right, one's not wrong. But I want you to think about it. I want you to acknowledge. And I want to think, what's your child's comfort level with physical touch? What are each of your boundaries in it? When do you make time for snuggling, sitting on the couch? I have 2 daughters. One is a hugger, one was not a hugger. I respected the non-hugger, but I still found ways, even when she was in high school, to let her know that I was here, that I am safe, that her little person is safe in this place. And it's a great place to just put a reminder, especially as your kids are getting older, that have that conversation about safe touch, that if they're uncomfortable with someone, you can't touch me, that you have the right to say no. Have that conversation, whether it's a boy or a girl. Respect. Talk about respect. So here's a fun one. Have fun. These days, is it baking? Is it walking? Is it taking hikes? Silly things, but even in high school, you can have the kids, there's an app that's joke of the day, have people at the family meeting or just at your dinner come with, tell a joke. Whose night is it to tell a joke? So I'm going to end with being mindful. There's no, and I hope you heard this tonight, there's no judgment. We're all just doing the best we can in these really scary times. And that we just try and figure out the way we're going to navigate this. And you taking that breath, literally and figuratively, and saying, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to show up. I just need to be present. I just need to be honest and vulnerable. So now is a great time. If anyone has any questions, any information, any resources you want to share.
Nancy, there was a comment earlier that you might want to speak about. Someone's student is having difficulty concentrating. I'm very stressed with online school, eating a lot of junk food.
Okay. So the question is, how do I help my child because they're having difficulty concentrating, and it sounds like some unhealthy starting habits.
Yeah.
So first thing is concentrate. Help look in their environment. As hard as it is, if you see behind me, might not be the prettiest thing, but for me, I can't have too much clutter. It's kind of weird because I can create mess in 2 seconds, but when I need to focus and I need to do this kind of work, I need things to be clear and organized. The problem is that our children, not all of them are so good at organizing. So when parents, I use this example all the time, and you tell your child to go clean their room and you come back and it's still a mess. Why haven't you done it? Oh my goodness. Wouldn't it be easier if, hey, what's the organizational system in here? And how can I help you get this organizational system? So I use that little example to answer this question because I think it's like, okay, what's their environment looking and how can you help them create an environment? That's the first part. The second thing is, are there any learning challenges, ADD, dyslexia, anything like that? Because for a lot of kids that does pop up in these middle school and high school years. The other thing is with the emotional eating, if that's what it is, I would kind of tread lightly and see how far can you get into having a conversation. Like, get curious. Oh, I noticed that I'm buying a lot of Dorito bags lately. Pause, silence. Kid doesn't, oh, mom, leave me alone. Okay, don't go in that door again. That one didn't work so well. Find another door. Oh, maybe focus on making sure that the house has lots of healthy choices. Maybe you ask your son or daughter to go with you to the grocery store and you buy a variety of vegetables. And, you know, for me, we always have celery and carrots cut up in the fridge because I'm always working too much and I just can run and grab it. Find some activities to do. I don't know if that helps, if there anything else I could add to it, but if you're really concerned, don't be afraid to reach out for more resources.
Okay.
Okay, I see, yeah. Also, a lot of kids, just made me think of something else. A lot of adults are having a hard time with the screens. So I know my girls got the blue light glasses and that really does help them. There's also ways, like right now, I just realized that I was on squinting all night long when I could have lowered that and it wasn't so bright in my eyes. Just simple things. You know, for me, if I had to work here all day at school, I could not, you can't see, but you can see the weird reflection. I have high hats on and that actually hurts my eyes. So during the day, I keep my lamps on so I don't have to use these. Things like that is just get curious and you can kind of navigate it. Any other questions?
I have a question for you that comes up a lot. I know over the years as a counselor, I often had, parents saying to me, "Oh, I'm just so glad that my student feels like they can talk to you." And I think it was always really interesting to think about what a parent could do for the student to feel like they could talk to them in that way. Like, how can parents of teenagers encourage their student to remain open to them and not shut down from them during the adolescent and teenage years?
Great question. Thank you. I think one of the things, and I don't know, you might hear this too, is that when I ask questions like that to the kids, it's like a fear of being judged, right? Do you hear that? A fear that my parent is going to be disappointed. My parents is going to be judged. They're going to be angry. So that the child is so living in the future, creating anxiety about it, of how is the parent going to react? And I say to that parent is, take that deep breath, take 3, and sit down with your child, create space, go for a walk. For me, it was always the car rides. I tried as much as I could to get one kid alone in the car, because it's so easy to just not have to make eye contact and have some of those conversations. I'm a big storyteller. Use stories. Even your kid's gonna roll their eyes at you. They're gonna laugh. They're gonna be annoyed. But stories, children love stories, and they remember the stories. So I use this example of, I would just get down and be silly. At camp, the sleepaway camp I worked at, it's a long story, but short is, I would create things, challenges for the counselors to do to help kind of keep them motivated to keep working with the kids. So I created this aha moment, and that if I, Nancy, caught you while I was walking around camp doing something like an aha moment, you would get like a free ice cream or some coffee, right? So one day I'm walking through center camp and I see this counselor, I remember her name, and she came sliding down like she was a baseball player, and she just slid right in, and this kid was sitting on the ground, all angry and so mad. I don't know what was going on with this boy, but she just slid right in and joined him where he was at. She just locked eyes with him. I couldn't hear it. I was quite a distance, but it was so impressive. She got the aha moment of the summer because she used her whole self. She put herself out there. She was vulnerable and brave at the same time to show that child that she was there, she was present. And I know that life is so hard, and I have lots of, I look back and say, I just said it today to my daughter, I should have done that better. Like, why didn't I do that better? But I showed up. I hopefully showed up more than not showed up. So, and I also say to the parent of the child who does come and talk to you, that also is so healthy too, because like we said before, this is the time where they do need to separate, and they're curious. They're trying to see, hey, well, I've always heard my mom and dad talk, but what's someone else's point of view on this? I know for me, I had a special aunt who was my person I could go to. And it was just so nice to know I had another person. So I tried when my girls were coming of age to make sure that it didn't have to be me. I just wanted them to have a team. I wanted them to have some safe people. And I would say like, oh, that might be like something you don't want to talk to me about, but maybe you want to go talk to da-da-da about that. Kind of building that team.
That's a good plug for our school counselors at SOMS, MMS, and CHS. Make sure that your student knows that their counselor is their person. We have another question here from a parent who believes their child is socially isolated doesn't have a phone, but the child is saying that they like it this virtual way without having to go to school. They're fine right now. And the parent is concerned about how it's going to be when we return to school.
Thank you for asking that question. That is, I don't know if you've heard that too in school, but I have heard that so often. For many of our children who have been dealing with social anxiety, whatever we want to label it right now, this is their dream come true. This is this huge respite. Like, are you kidding? I can like roll over and go to class. The danger is, please, we're all going to go back to school soon, right? And how are they going to function? And so that could be a whole program unto itself. But my quick answer would be is start to get your child to have some social interaction before school starts. Whether it be you go hiking with some family members, find, somehow create, right? Also, be curious, is there some underlying anxiety there that was sort of brushed under the carpet and now is an opportunity to help build that, I call it the imaginary resiliency toolkit, right? How are you helping that child be resilient? Lying in bed, playing video games, doing whatever, yeah, it's comfortable, but now we have to start moving. And you might need extra support to do it, and that's okay. The school's there, there's resources. So yeah, that's a good answer.
Okay, I have another question that's geared a little bit more towards some of our older students.
Okay.
And it's about, the anxieties of the college process right now and some of the tension between parents and students throughout this process. Do you have any words of wisdom for parents during that time?
Take a deep breath and then take 10 more. Somehow, right? All these kids are going to get into college. I can't even keep up, and you might be able to answer, but I know there's a whole mess with the SAT and the ACT. Yeah, like take a deep breath. Remember, your children are watching you. If you're freaking out about this, they're going to meet you there. They might not show it by saying, oh my God, I'm so worried about school. They might just get angry. They might go vape a little too much, or take a deep breath. Somehow we're all figuring this out together. I mean, I don't know if that's what you're seeing, but also, and I said this last night, and I know it was probably easier for the parents who have younger kids, but right now, maybe our focus doesn't need to be on my kid has to get into the best school, my kid has to get straight A's, have to. Right now, maybe it's time to switch. Right? The world is kind of upside down. Let's use this as a time to reassess ourselves as parents and help. What are we helping? What kind of person are we helping to raise? I don't know about you, but I wanted to raise a really kind, empathetic, good person who also was smart and did da-da-da-da-da. I wasn't perfect either. But when I started to get carried away and do all the craziness, my kids met me and then some in terms of anxiety level. So now it's time to calm down. Get curious about how is your kid feeling. I have more kids right now, clients who are in schools because they went to college as freshmen and they're really, really struggling because they weren't ready maturity-wise. They didn't have a really good resiliency toolkit. And then throw some masks on in COVID, they're really struggling. So calm it down, and maybe we do another program just on that topic.
We could probably do that, yes.
So it looks like that is all of our questions. Well, I finished with this slide because I invite you all who's still here to join me in this conversation, join me in this mission that I'm on of raising resilient children. And please go to nancyjkislin.com. You go there and you'll sign up and you will get my probably every 2 weeks emails. I have lots of articles. I write for Psychology Today and Today Parents twice a month on each of them, on all kinds of topics. Also, when you sign up, you will get a free little ebook on mindfulness in children, mindfulness on adults, and some techniques and skills that I've been studying mindfulness for 25 years now. It's actually a chapter out of my book, Lockdown, Talking to Your Kids About School Violence. Who knew when I wrote a book called Lockdown, a year later we would be in lockdown? And I'm always here. I mean, today alone, I got 3 calls from people that weren't looking for a therapist. They just needed someone to help. What's the next step that they needed to go to? Where should they go? How do they help their child? So I'm a great resource. I'm here to help. Follow me on Facebook, Nancy Kislin, Parenting Navigator. And it's always such an honor to be here. I give a big virtual hug, and it's not easy. And you all parents have the hardest job in a long, long time.
For sure. Thank you so much, Nancy, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This video is going to be available online, so this was being recorded. So we thank you all and have a good evening.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.